It's been exactly 3 days since leaders wrapped up the G7 summit, a group that is majorly formed by Western nations, the 7 wealthiest nations in the world. But the 2 most talked about countries in this meeting, however, were absent at G7. We're talking about Russia and China. Qatar today and Moscow and Beijing have chosen to have a meeting of their own. It was a big table with delegates sitting on opposing ends. The wide space between the 2 sides was the polar opposite of the cozy relationship that they actually share. The leaders agreed to cooperate at a whole new level. So what this new level is pretty difficult at this moment to fathom, but this was the meeting of the big 2, Russia and China, the 2 nations that are not a part of the G7, but these 2 nations, of course, came together for a special meeting. Talks took place about investments, trade, agriculture and sports.
Our countries stand together against attempts of the collective West to save its global dominant position and its usage of outlaw sanctions to force their will on independent countries.
China-Russia pragmatic cooperation is characterized by resilience, great potential and extensive space, which has become even more prominent this year. China is willing to work with Russia to implement the consensus of the 2 heads of state and promote pragmatic cooperation in various fields to a new level.
Now, with these 2 nations, one directly targeted the West, the other said that ties have become more resilient, especially this year. The big question, of course, is this: for how long will China and Russia cooperation last? Because more than mutual interest, it is the animosity with the West and also the targeted sanctions that the West has tried to impose on both Russia and indeed on China, which has brought these 2 nations together. But even otherwise, remember, Russia and China do historically have a close relationship. Although there are differences, but still these 2 nations have been on most issues on the same side. There is constant talk about how they would, of course, deal with the sanctions that have been slapped by the West. Now, even before the war, China and Russia had signed a no-limits partnership, and there is no doubt that the invasion, of course, has brought them even closer. Now, the question, of course, is this: the G7 nations have tried to isolate Russia and China further, but how far will that isolation, in fact, continue? At this moment is difficult to predict, and will that isolation that has been attempted even by the G7 will fructify is not clear at all.